Thanks, Happy. I appreciate that. It's very kind of you. Thank you very much. Lucky L, you never what? Hello, Roro Raggy? Raro Raggy? Angel Dust, how's it going? Excuse my hiccup. Thanks, Leo Burton. Appreciate that. All the nice comments from everybody. Thank you. It's music from one of the Star Trek movies. Well, a good guess, or, good instincts. I'm a big Star Trek fan, but I like to listen to instrumental movie scores when I'm drawing pages like this. Not all the time, but often. Just helps kind of get in the mood for it. Yeah, it's a comic. It's a fan comic. It's a Masters of the Universe fan comic I've been working on for years. I've got about, I don't know, if I had to guess, 400 pages of it. I'm 400 pages into it. I mean, I haven't been working on it consistently. I've done some small work for some small publishers that no one's ever heard of, I promise you. And some life events kept me away from it for a long time from when I started. So I've been working on it for a long time. But for the past 3 years, I've been doing nothing but work on this exclusively. So I basically produce one issue a year. And I make them big. I've got 5 volumes done. Let me grab them. So that's book 1 right there. It's about 80 pages. So that's volume 1. There's book 2. Again, big thick book. That's book 3. That one's pretty big. I mean, they're all big, but some are bigger than others. So those are volumes 1, 2, and 3. They're all kind of like one contained story. And then the story continues on. Volume 4. Right here. This one's maybe only 80 pages. It's a little smaller. Just because of the time frame that I had. And then the most recent one that I did, book 5, right here. This one's like 120 pages. And so right now I'm working on book 6. And I don't know how many pages I've got done on volume 6. I'm approaching 100. But I'm really close to the end. I'm at the end battle, end story, end climax, everything of everything. That's what this is. So it's just black and white. Just I write it, I draw it, I ink it, I letter it. Less than pi. You did see in the first 3 volumes, it's a He-Man centric story, but it does cross over a bit with some other 80s cartoon properties if you're aware of them. And I am not publishing this anywhere because I don't own it. You know, it's a fan comic. So I do make it available if people want to donate to the channel, so to speak. I'll send you copies of them if somebody's interested. But it's just a fan project I've been working on because I had this story in my head and I'm like, you know what? I'm going to tell this story. Excuse me. Who inspired me? I mean, I'm 47 years old, and I've been reading comic books, for example, since I was a teenager. So there's a billion artists out there that are drawing or have been drawing that have inspired me. And then just the old 80s cartoons that I grew up on, obviously. Just this stuff, just you start thinking of stories and ideas. And I think most people that are creative and like to draw comic type stuff, we're always thinking of stories. Wouldn't it be neat if you did this or you did that? And that's always been me. And I decided one time, I'm like, I'm just going to draw one of these ideas in my head. I'm just going to do it. I'm sick of having ideas in my head that go nowhere but stay right there as just my thoughts. So I just one day a couple years ago, I just like, what? Let's just go. Let's draw this thing. I've been working on it off and on. I'm almost done with it. I'm pretty proud of it. I mean, I'm not saying it's the greatest thing anyone's ever going to read ever by any means, but it's a different take on something that some people know, and people might enjoy it. The people who've read it, I've never had anybody come back and tell me they thought it was horrible, unless they're just being nice. This is the best work you've ever seen? In terms of what? Like, just comic art, or? Because I promise you, there's a lot better guys out there than me. I really promise you. I just do the best I can and try to make it entertaining. Yo, Mr. Someone Sane. Some other pages that I've done recently. Got some violent, bloody stuff going on. This is one of my favorite pages right here. This one was a lot of fun to do. But someone's saying, man, how are you? What is new? What is new? I am doing the same old thing I've always been doing. Missed you on the very, very late night stream I ended up doing last night, which I I do apologize because I was only 2.5 hours late. But I was on a date, so. And then she came over to my place and we ended up just talking for a couple hours, just kind of bullshitting. And then my roommate kind of got involved and we were talking, and we all kind of know each other anyway, so we just kind of hung out and bullshitted. And I'm like, oh, I was supposed to be doing a live stream, but that's okay. Yeah, I do apologize though about that, man. I went to dinner at 6 o'clock with her, and we were done by 7. But we drove back to my place so she could get her car, and then I was like, "You want to come in and chit chat?" She's like, "Sure." We come in, we sit down, we start bullshitting, and just, another 2.5 hours go by. RX1, yes, I am making my own comic book. That is correct. You know what's funny? Someone saying, I know exactly what you mean. Can't let yourself burn out here. Doing this is what keeps me from burning out. From my job, my regular job, or just any other kind of nonsense in life. Doing this, there's some stress with me trying to get it done in time, like I've talked about it. But this is kind of my joyful part, man. Now, of course, going on a date last night was very much worthwhile and needed, and I've already got plans again for another one, but this is kind of where I have my fun moments. Leo Burton, so yeah, I don't know if, I'm sorry, I'm crossing my memory of who asked what earlier, but it's a fan comic of Masters of the Universe, and it's just something I've been working on. And if you know the Masters of the Universe world at all, a sword and sorcery fantasy world with technology and magic and monsters and heroes and villains and all that stuff, and this is just my version of it. And we're in the final battle with this giant demon snake monster. Thanks, RX1. I can't speak on manga comics or anything like that because I certainly don't know anything about them, but I appreciate the art form for sure. But it's all drawing to tell a story, whether it's, Japanese style manga or American comic book stuff, which like I'm doing. But yeah, thanks. I appreciate it. Yeah, Leo Burton. Yeah, kind of the same, but they're very different, formats and things like that. But the conceptually drawing to tell a story. So there's enough connective tissue to have a understanding and respect for them all on my part for sure. Dominator of Doms, you've aspired to be a comic artist. Do you have any tips? I mean, that's a hard, there's no easy answer for that. I know it might sound stupid, but you got to learn to draw. And I don't know what level you're at, but you got to learn to draw human figures of every type and every pose and every position. You got to learn to draw backgrounds and cars and buildings and scenery and forests and deserts and snow waste mountains and multiple people on a page, and you got to draw regular people talking, sitting around, having conversations. You got to be able to do it all. Depending on what the story that you want to draw is going to ask of you. And then just learning to figure draw is one thing. Then you got to learn storytelling. How to make a page flow from panel 1 to 2, 3, 4, so your eye falls through the page and the reader can follow the story and understand what's going on. Understanding composition and cinematography, basically, how to angle things and do dramatic lighting. There's a lot, and I would just say just sit down and just start drawing. Draw from life. Don't learn to draw from comic books. You'll just pick up the deficiencies that other artists have, or you'll be trying to replicate something that an artist does, but you won't understand why they're doing it. Draw from life and then start stylizing it after the fact. Optic Gamer, how much would I charge to draw your comic for you? Unless you're extremely wealthy, there's no amount of money. I am doing my own thing, and I've got goals that I'm working towards, and so I'm not really interested in drawing anybody else's stuff, and I don't mean, it's not a disrespectful thing to say to you. It's just that I'm working on my own stuff, and that's all I'm interested in. But again, unless somebody's extremely wealthy and willing to pay me a lot, I will drop everything to draw, for the right dollar amount, but so yeah, I'm just doing my own thing. I'll do that one for you. Someone saying you need someone who can draw an elephant flying a speeder bike wearing a bikini. Hell yeah. And I get that, Optic Gamer. I do understand it, and there's no harm in asking, but I just, like I said, I've just been doing this stuff forever, and I'm getting too old to be doing anything except the stuff that I want to do for my own self before I'm not able to do any damn thing anymore. So I'm basically just doing it for me anymore. Pat K, I don't know what you mean. You can't even send me a picture on my Discord profile? I'm not sure what you mean by that. Leo, who are you talking to? Yeah, Optic Gamer, I actually can identify with what you're talking about. There's nothing from Marvel or DC that I'm interested in anymore, and I used to buy them all the time. I've been collecting comics forever. There's nothing on my pull list anymore except, well, honestly, nothing. And so it's a rare thing when there's a comic that comes out that I'm excited for. So part of what I'm doing is just trying to make something that I think other people would be interested in. Leo Burton, I use a whole assortment of shit, honestly. I use a lot of these Micron pens. And I have these Faber-Castell Pitt pens. And then I use kind of the classic dip pens like this. Hunt 102. And brushes to do the ink work. It just depends on what I'm doing or what kind of a mood I'm in. I have one of these Pentel pocket brushes. It's got the ink inside that you can change out the cartridge inside it from this brush tip. So yeah, Leo, I use a whole bunch of different stuff. Leo, you're asking what's happening on this page? Well, I might as well just explain the whole sequence because it would make more sense in context. So, Leo, which is funny for me to say because my son's name is Leo, so it's funny to just hear myself saying that name. There's this giant demon monster, skull head, horns, snake body, and he came up from a pit from hell. And this is a magician, like a sorceress girl. She's casting this energy down to keep the pit to hell closed. But demon monster is coming and trying to stop her, to like kill her. so the pit from hell can rise open and explode open. That's what's going on. And let me get my other pages since I'm in a storytelling mood, I guess. So anyway, I got the sorceress girl. She's casting her magic down into the pit to hell, trying to keep it closed, and she's screaming for She-Ra to stop the demon monster and help her to close the portal to hell. So She-Ra is fighting big demon monster, trying to, hold him back. So we see a bunch of fight scenes, monster slamming down at her, she's blasting at him, big close-up of his face onto her. She socks him a good one right in the face. He crushes down on her, intense look on her eye. Meanwhile, this other character who was told to get out of the battle, Fisto is his name here, he's flying in with a jetpack. He's coming back to the battle after he was told to get out. So he's zooming back to the fight. Giant demon monster smacks She-Ra away. So I haven't finished this page. So she's laying on the ground. Demon monster's going for the sorceress girl in the background who's trying to keep the pit to hell closed. She-Ra's looking, and she can hear in her mind the sorceress girl here is telling, through mental telepathy, telling her, she's like, you and He-Man, the way to stop this monster is to both of you take your swords, your magical swords, and stab them into him, both of you at the same time, and the power will eliminate the demon. So She-Ra's picking herself up. She's like, okay, I hear you. Punching him's not going to do it, but I understand what we need to do now. And then this is He-Man. He's on his way back to the battle, and he's bloodied as hell. I just put up a video a couple days ago saying Beastman versus Jitsu that explains why He-Man looks like this, if anybody cares to go back and see those pages. But He-Man's on his way. He's like, I'm coming. She-Ra's got an intense look on her face. She turns to face the demon monster. She's like, come at me, bro, one more time. So demon monster does. And he blasts at her, and it burns the flesh off her right arm and right leg and part of her face. So she tries to dive out of the way, but she does not avoid the blast, so she gets sizzled. And there's a couple of pages I haven't drawn yet where she falls on the ground, and the flying guy, Fisto, he shows up to help her. Meanwhile, He-Man shows up on scene. He's got his sword. Demon monster's going after the sorceress girl, so He-Man takes his sword, hauls it back, and throws it. And then right here, the page I was working on, stabs the demon monster in the back. So now Fisto's there with She-Ra, and she's like, I gotta get up. I gotta take the sword. I gotta get my sword and impale it into him too. And Fisto's like, no, you're too hurt. I can do this. So he grabs the sword. In fact, I just realized I gotta remember to draw his jetpack on him here. Jesus, that'd be a big glaring omission. Anyway, he's got his jetpack on. So he takes the sword, stands up triumphantly, and she's like, no, I've got to do this. This is my job. And he's like, no, I got you. I'll take care of this. So he blasts off into the sky, goes up to the demon monster who's got the sword in his back from He-Man. And so he comes up to him. He's got the sword in his hand. He throws it, and it impales into the chest of the demon monster. And Fisto, this guy here, he's kind of screaming in victory, like, holy shit, yeah, die, monster, die. And that's, I mean, there's still more pages to go to draw, but that's where I'm at right now. So you're asking what was going on that page? Well, you just got a whole several page breakdown of what was going on. So I hope it helps. Let's see. And hello to anybody who's joined up and I haven't had a chance to say hi to or say anything to yet. Sophie, I see. Patrick Pierce, how's it going? Pepperoni, bruh. How are you, bruh? So yeah, Leo Burton. Yeah, I hope that was, you know, kind of what you were looking for. Yeah, I had to get that jetpack on there. What's next? It's 3 in the afternoon where I'm at. I've seen the animated movie Heavy Metal for sure. It's been a long time. That's really cool, like funny bits in it, and really well animated stuff. Pat K, if you're on the Discord, just post up the artwork in the public forum. That's where everyone else does. I don't know why you can't send stuff to me on the Discord. It's not a setting that I've ever intentionally done. But I can look at everyone's stuff. It just posted in the art sharing forum, you know, and you get lots of feedback from all kinds of people there. Imagine He-Man coming out of the gates of hell. That would be interesting. Be frightening. Let's see. Time to do some texturing. Who doesn't love Kirby Crackle? There's someone saying. No one you know, right? I understand that I'm going to be hearing about that a lot. But seriously, watch it. I know. Oh yeah, for real. All those photocopies he's got of all those inks. It's just ridiculous how good those guys were and are. He was talking about he might have, but he's not sure, have some Travis Charest pages, like pencils or maybe inks. He told me once he thinks he has a penciled page. I'm like, that's the one I want to see more than anything, because they don't exist. No one's got those. They didn't make copies of his pencils back in the day. So if he's got some of that, I'm really excited to see those. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Neon Angela says, like the legend Kirby. Yeah, it's a fun energy pattern to do, that Kirby crackle, and trying to figure out how to do it and make it work in a way that makes sense. Kirby crackle will always remind you of dark matter for some unexplainable reason. That makes sense to me. It's just such a weird. I wonder how somebody could try and like portray that kind of a thing, this Kirby crackle, in a movie, in like a live action situation. I wonder what that could possibly look like. That's kind of like me. Someone saying like I don't know. The way that I see Kirby crackle is like a. God, I'm trying like you. I'm like, how do I describe it? The word I want to use is going to sound weird. Like it's an energy that's oozing out of something, but almost like a foamy kind of bubbling thing. Someone saying, imagine this, that, and this and that, but also not that in any way, shape, or form. I get it, man. It's hard to describe. Mark, hello, 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 hello. Mark, I found myself just like thinking, there's so many things to say about that scene. I don't even know where to start. So my brother and I started with the juvenile humor. It's just so unbelievably stupid. And why was he wearing his big goggles? I mean, he can take his goggles off. It is shown at some point later, but yeah. It's just so dumb. I just get the feeling that Liefeld's trying to be clever, and he's not. He doesn't know how to be, and he's not clever. Yeah, Youngblood. It's just a laughable book, unfortunately. Like any of these books, it had the potential to be something, but then it just kind of wasn't. Uzin, USIN, you say you really like that I keep popping up on your feed, really inspires you to try and work more on your projects. Well, that's one of my favorite things I like to hear from people, is that what I'm doing is inspiring anybody else to work on their stuff. That's a big compliment, so thank you. Yeah, man, pull out some stuff and work on stuff. It's fun to show work that's done, that you finished and you completed it, a sense of satisfaction. Oh, hey, Chuck. Chuck says, inspired me to get a camera and get my YouTube going and work on paper again for the first time in a decade. Well, Chuck, you've pushed me and inspired me too, man. You've made me want to be a better artist and, push harder. So, can't thank you enough. Well, thanks, Chuck. I mean, I'm trying, like I said. So I'm pumping these things out fast enough. I better be having some level of improvement somewhere, or I'm really doing something wrong. And I can kind of feel it. Some things are kind of happening a little bit easier. Really enjoyed all those pages you showed earlier on the stream, Chuck. Those were really just impressive pages. The inking that Richard Bennett can do is just, it's unbelievable. I mean, the amount of detail and control over the pen, just shocking. Mark, you say my old X-Men, classic X-Men videos got you reading your old copies. Yeah, that's one of my. I really was really enjoying going through those. I mean, there's still more to go through, but I kind of went through all the ones that were the most important ones to me that I had at the time. The Proteus saga and the Dark Phoenix stuff. But those old classic X-Men issues were so fun when I was reading them in real time. You know, real time for me, which was after the fact, but still. Yuzen says, "Are you illustrating a whole story, or do you just like making scenes?" Oh no, I'm telling a whole story here. There's a whole story. I've got 5 volumes of this thing. Like, see these whole books, all these books? This is all my Masters of the Universe fan comic. And I'm currently on 70 or 80 pages, I don't even know anymore, for the last volume. So yeah, I got a big story and I'm almost done with it. I'm right at the end. I keep using this metaphor, but this is the battle at the Return of the Jedi. This is where Vader's facing off against Luke. You know, it's kind of like that point in the story. So it's all the big exciting finale stuff. And Chuck, you will 100% get copies. I was just kind of figuring, Chuck, once I get book 6 printed, I'll just send you one of each of them. I could send you 1 through 5 now, but I just guess I kind of assumed you'd be fine just once I get book 6 done that you've been helping me on. I'll send you copies of all of it so you can read it if you want. I'm not going to hold anybody to that, but I will hook you up. But you can get context for all this stuff that you've been kind of helping me work on and the stuff I've been talking about. I think it's kind of a breezy read. I mean, it's not too complex. Guess who's back? Back again. Hey Chuck, I gotta email you too. I got a couple of questions and things to kind of mention, but I got a voice message from Isaac Bell, and I know you know him, the guy that's doing that metal shade. But he sent me a message this morning saying that he's been thinking of for a long time that he wants to do some collaborations with me. He specifically says, I've been thinking of doing a collaboration with you and your channel, and as far as you with your art, he's like, I want to do some collaboration with you and Chuck if you guys are interested. So I responded to him with a voice message saying, I can't speak for Chuck, but I'm certainly willing to, listen to see what you're interested in. But he's got he wants to expand he's got like a comic, he wants to expand his little comic world that he's got, and he wants to work with not just me, but he said you too, like us. So I'm just kind of waiting on him to kind of respond and kind of talk to him about it. So I figured if nothing else, it's worth giving a listen to and see what he's got to mention, because he's got a little pretty successful brand going on. Oh yeah, because he mentioned that he said that he knows that you've been getting your channel going and trying to build it up, and Isaac's got an audience, considering how successful his Kickstarters are. I've been trying to get pencils out of that fucker for years. Pardon my language. I'm sure he'll be more than happy to hook you up. But I've wanted to try inking his stuff forever. Just because I wouldn't do any good at it, but I wanted to try it. And, and then he just kind of moved on to digital. But, yeah, I wanted to do the same thing. But, yeah, that would be awesome, man. To see you work over some of his stuff, to give your kind of finish to his stuff. Because he's got a very kind of specific way that he renders his inking. Of course, I mean, everyone does. But it'd be really neat to see what you do to his stuff. Hey, Jai Deep, thank you. Appreciate that. Jessica sent me a really sweet message. I posted it up. I was trying to not cry, but I'm a big baby. But when she says something really genuinely sweet like that means a lot to me, I get all blubbery. I'm a big softie, really. I mean, my divorce killed a lot of my emotions, but they're not all dead. They're just mostly dead. There's a big difference between mostly dead and all dead. Mostly dead means slightly alive. So, that describes me. Right, Chuck? That's right. Yeah. Just keep that shit away from us. I don't want this sappy shit. Oh my god, I gotta tell Jess that. I gotta screenshot that. Oh my god. So funny, man. Oh, that was great. I know someone said to get that reference. Chuck's like, I could have 10 families out there. He's like Genghis Khan. Jim Lee has 12 kids. Yeah, he's got a lot of energy, doesn't he? Some of them kids maybe aren't even his, right? Can marry into stuff. Yeah, I don't know either. You know, I originally wasn't going to render the shit out of this back anatomy on this monster, but then I watched some random YouTuber showing some Richard Bennett inking with hyper detailing on everything, and I'm like, you know what? I'm in a rendering mood. Let me do my piss poor version of it. But it's kind of fun. Let's see. Yeah, I imagine it must have taken him forever to finish that Brass comic. But I guess, you know, I can understand like wanting to like at the time, this is like my master work, you know, and I'm going to make it look the way that it needs to look, even if it takes me forever. As long as it gets finished, I'm kind of fine with that personally. I'm not going to say I'm fine with it taking for, you know, decades and decades, but if a person's working on it to make it look best that it can be and it comes out, I'll wait. I'm here. Oh, so he's still got all those pages? I guess I can get that. I mean, I would think you know, if he needed to or wanted to, if he were to try to sell them today, I would imagine they'd only be even more valuable now. That's fair too. You put that much time into them, you're not going to give them away, and probably not going to get what they're actually worth in terms of time put into it. That's fair. That makes sense. I've even got one guy that wants to ask to buy one of these specific pages I've been working on, and I'm having a little bit of a hard time imagining letting it go. Just I'm like, this is my baby. The umbilical cord is virtually uncut. But he really wanted this one page. So I'm like, all right, well, let me finish it up. Let me see. Let me get the comic done first. I'm not going to sell anything before I even get the thing printed. The Neil Adams pricing method, you take whatever amount that you'd like to be paid, not the minimum you'll take, but what you'd like to see, and then double that figure. Is that where you kind of like start your negotiations? I like that. I'm going to screenshot that. I think you mentioned it once before to me, but I'm going to screenshot that quote. I mean, I'm sure I can remember it, but... We have room to negotiate, and then when you come down on your price, you seem like a swell guy. That makes sense. That makes sense to me. Scared the guy away. The guy was like, all right, I'll get back to you. I've heard that before. The I'll get back to you, or I'll think about it, or I'll let you know. I'm like, yeah, that's a no. You're disinterested, and that's fine. Oh, yeah, you don't want to do the commission anyway? That I get. It's like, money's great, but I don't want to do this. So if I am going to do it, they're going to pay through their ass to get it. And if they want to pay, then all right. Corey Mason says, cool, well, thank you. Hope you're doing well. Mohammed, welcome. Thanks, D-Man. Me and my brother always have fun talking craft on a Youngblood comic. Especially when it's got the scene with Troll in the shower with his little soaped up dick inside it. You're just like, why am I looking at this? Why is this here? Oh, I didn't know that, Chuck. Thanks for the FYI. That's interesting. Screenshotting makes this audio cut out. That's real. That's weird. YouTube's got some weird shit that they do. I'm doing good, Mohammed. I hope everyone else is doing good. Gotta stop doodling for half a second. I'm gonna step away for 1 second run into the other room. I got a pile of comics in the mail that are going to be coming up for the channel, and I want to show you. Some of you guys might find these interesting. All right, what did I get? I got Avenge Blade. Anybody hear about this? I don't think I ever heard about this. Somebody was selling it for super cheap. It's like a parody comic with a bunch of Extreme Studios guys who don't know how to draw girls, trying to draw the hottest girls you've ever seen. I mean, I guess that's a pretty good butt shot. I guess I can't complain if it's meant to be a joke, but I mean, that face, that is something. So that'll be funny. Somebody was selling a really cheap copy. I would never have got this if it wasn't for the controversy. White Devil, where people are saying this is where Liefeld stole Shatterstar's design from, almost 100%. I'm like, I got to pick up a couple of White Devil. Adults only. But Liefeld's adamant that he did not steal Shatterstar's design from this character, but that they must have stole it from him. I don't know who's truthful. All I know is I tend to not believe Liefeld. I just think he's full of shit. White Devil, I like that. Anybody who's ever seen the second Ace Ventura movie? They referred to Ace as, when he's in Africa, he's like, Iquensi Ocha. That means White Devil. He's like, don't refer to me that way. I got a copy of Verotica. There's a naked girl's booty right on the cover. That's my opinion on Liefeld. I don't know the man at all, and I just think that I got this because the artist is Calvin Irving, and he picked up and was doing that Chapel mini-series that was very much like this guy was it's like they were trying to do Death Blow and Sin City, but this Calvin Irving guy who's long since passed away. I didn't even know he drew one of these books. It was kind of interesting. Some pretty dynamic art. I can see why Liefeld would want to scoop him up. But it actually wasn't... Yeah, see, that's what I thought, Chuck. Calvin, when I saw those issues of Chapel that he did, like, he had energy and, like, raw power and lighting, and he had all kinds of dynamic stuff. I reviewed a couple of those books, and I just think it could have been amazing to see what he could have developed into. He had something. He definitely had something, but he ended up dead. I heard that straight from Liefeld. I asked him on a message board a couple of years ago. I'm like, whatever happened to him? And he said, he's passed on. That's all I'm going to say about it. Out of respect for the family, I'm not going to say any more as to how or why. So I'm like, okay, that's fair. And then a book series I never knew, I never saw in the wild anywhere. Dooms 4, which I thought was just like the worst. Like, what is this? Dr. Doom's Fantastic Four. Somebody had all 4 books for pretty damn cheap. I'm like, all right, hook me up. And what is page 1 of this new series of a Liefeld title? It's a giant rock monster with glowing eyes and gritted teeth and no nose. It's like the fourth version of that kind of a character. But to be fair, Mark Pacella drew this. He's not horrible. He had more skills than Liefeld did. But yeah, Dooms 4. Got all 4 of these books. I kind of messed up. I'm trying to get a hold of bad comics. You know, they make for fun content, and sometimes they get more views, which is more ad revenue for Rob. So in a way, they kind of pay for themselves, honestly. Yeah, that's interesting, Chuck, because back when I was a kid, I hated his stuff. And I look at it now with a different eye, and you can see what he could do. And you're like, oh, he could actually do all these other things that were a lot of the other people around him, like, kind of couldn't. So I've actually kind of grown to understand that I had him wrong when I was a kid. But, yeah, he could... I mean, look at this crazy Transformer monster bad guy in here. There's some detail going on. And the inkers were doing a good job. It's Alkiza and Miki and T-Bear. I thought it was looking kind of good. But yeah, I find myself picking up terrible books to do on the channel. But again, like I was saying, ad revenue, I mean, these things are kind of paying for themselves, honestly, based on the ad revenue that I get. I get $4 or $5 per video in a way. I mean, look at that side view. Look at that robot thing. Chuck say, I think his style is more kid-friendly than a lot of guys back then, and his storytelling skills are pretty on point. Yeah, I mean, look at these backgrounds. There's a whole lot of detail in this technological bunker they're in. Yeah, there's something there. So I was actually surprised. I mean, I do have to say, by the time they got to book 4, I mean, again, when you got book 1, and you've got Marlo Alkiza, Danny Miki, and Art T-Bear inking. And then you get to book 4, you got Bob Wycheck and Paul Scott, and Paul Scott is just Liefeld, right? It became significantly less interesting. The art, the inking on it, just the texture, and it just, the book 4 was not up to the level of the first 3. It was a significant kind of drop. And I wasn't even sure which pages were Liefeld. Like, you think you'd be able to identify Liefeld's line work on the inks. I don't know. Book 1 was pretty damn good. Books 2 and 3 are pretty good. Book 4. You know what, D-Man? I've actually thought about that. I have ripped a comic book up on screen. I've done that. I've ripped a book up. Ricked a book. And what else? Oh yeah, it's behind me. I've been wanting this forever. Ghost by Adam Hughes. This is one of those books where I'd finally started understanding how good Adam Hughes was and that he was drawing this. And so I always wanted it. And I flipped through it. It's pretty good. Like, he hadn't quite got to the level where he kind of was like the mature version of himself, but you could tell how good he was in that book. So that's a fun one. I was glad to get that. And then I got these Legion of Night that Portasio drew. I'd seen this promotional image everywhere. I thought this monster thing, get a copy of Hughes May's agency. I'll have to seek that out. That sounds familiar. I certainly haven't seen it, but yeah, I saw this monster face and this girl all the time in ads, and I thought it looked amazing. And you see it's inked by Scott Williams, colors by Paul Mount, so I got these 2 books. Panosian on inks on book 2. And they're thick books. Like, these are big things. Oh, really? Second issue is Panosian's first professional job. Oh, I'm going to pay very close attention to that one. I did like a quick flip through. Yeah, those were... I was really glad to see those. So snagged those. Put that aside, that aside. And then I've seen that promotional image everywhere when people talk about McFarlane's early stuff. So DC Invasions, book 1, 2, and 3. Such early McFarlane. 1988, I was 11 years old. I was my oldest son's age when this was made. And it's interesting old McFarlane artwork. You could see his style there, but he hadn't quite gone to insane levels with page design yet, but it looks good. So I haven't read them. They're thick-ass books. This is like 70 pages. 80 pages. Holy Lord. That's just book 1. So, yeah. And I've even got more in the mail on the way. I found that page on Facebook, that comic ringside swap or something like that. And, yeah, it's grabbed my attention. And then, of course, I got my copy of Death of Power, number 4. And this is just hilariously genius. The way that Polymer Man, Elongated Man, killed this chick by slamming his fist up into her nethers and then popped his hand out through her mouth and ripped her guts out. Blah. It's one of the most creative deaths I've ever seen in a comic ever. Yep, love this stuff. This Kurt Burdick guy was lucky to get the spotlight on the Cartoonist Kayfabe channel before that thing kind of ended, because he gets to make these and be successful at them all the time now. Boosted his signal in a big way. Next year, people will be buying what I tell them is cool. That would be, I don't know if I'm ready for that level of responsibility. I don't know nothing. And then I was able to get a whole pile. I think I've shown these, but I bought this whole big pile of X-Men books for like $2 each, I think. It was pretty cheap, but I was interested in all the old Silvestri artwork. We got the first Jim Lee X-Men issue, and then more Silvestri stuff. Some not so good stuff. And then they sent me a copy of 275 for free because it had some water damage. Like you could see, it's kind of wavy, but that's fine. This is still magical stuff to me. So 275, 76, and 77. These are the last Uncannies that he did, right? Wasn't 277 the final one? People want to know what book you're doing in advance to avoid paying a sick markup. I mean, that'd be funny if I had that kind of pull, but I certainly don't want to be a guy that's like, I mean, it's not the point. Like, I'm not manipulating anything, because that's certainly not my goal in any way, shape, form, but I don't know. I don't know if anybody's going to be listening to me that much. It'd be interesting. Yeah, Wild Times for the X-Men. That was some crazy stuff. Crazy books. But man, at the time, I was like, this is the greatest stuff I've ever read in my life. I do remember Forge using a sniper rifle on the Reavers. Like these guys who beat Wolverine down and strung him up and almost killed him, and it just takes a sniper rifle. I mean, whatever. I don't, some distance means a lot. But yeah, a lot of fun stuff. And again, I've got more in the mail on the way, and I honestly have forgot what I've ordered. I'll be like, okay, I want it. And they'll be like, all right, PayPal me $10. I'm like, okay, it's done. It's on the way. And so far, everyone sent everything they've said they would do. Oh, yeah, check. You're saying there were copies available cheap still, and I was going to pull the trigger on getting one. Then they did a video and the prices tripled. Yeah, I mean, they talked about, you're talking about the Kayfabe guys, I'm sure. Talk about the Kayfabe effect, right? And they're like, it's no joke. Like, people would do it. And it's not like they were doing anything intentionally. They're like, we're just going to talk about it. But then suddenly people want it. Yeah, I don't want to deceive anybody. I got no interest in being deceitful. We're just having fun here. We just want to make books, talk about art. Maybe occasionally I'll make fun of some bad art. Yeah, just like that Nick Manabat book. I showed it off. Yeah, I had like 3 or 4 different people hit me up privately, like, "Hey, how do I get one?" I'm like, "You can't. Will you sell yours?" I'm like, "Dude, I've had it for 2 days." Like, well, I'll. And a guy was willing to trade me 3 art books. He wanted to trade me a Spider-Man, the McFarlane Spider-Man, the Jim Lee X-Men, and a third one. I can't remember what it was for the Nick Manabat one. Like, and that's financially that was, that was in my favor. But I'm like, I want this book because I will never get it again. This is a very unique one-off thing. So I'm like, you're being very generous, but again, I'd only had it for like a day or two. So I was like, no, it's a very generous offer, but and then I went and bought those art books just on my own. And don't get me wrong, for the right dollar amount, I'll let that Nick Manabat book go, but ain't no one gonna pay me what I'd let it go for. Yeah, you're right. It's probably like that guy and that book that they made. That was just that one off, that one time, People will know what they're getting into before they hand me their money. Yeah, D-Man, $1 million? I think I'd budge for that. I'm like, all right, for $1 million, but then how much in taxes do I got to pay? That's the shit. That's the shit end of it. I am reaching a point though where I've got too many artist editions, like you've been talking about, Chuck. I'm like, I'm running out of places to keep these. Maybe I have to be really picky on the next ones I want to get. And I look at all these artist editions. I'm like, why is there no Mark Silvestri X-Men artist edition? Like, how can that not exist? Like a Silvestri X-Men Wolverine artist edition. Yeah, and you've mentioned that, Chuck. I get that. Um, I'm sure you're right. Or I mean, I know you're right. But man, I would be all over a Silvestri one. I want to find a copy of that black and white French edition Batman Joker version that they did, but never announced to anybody, and you can't find anywhere. Yeah, that makes sense. They have to find the pages to scan and then whatever negotiations they have to do. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's not an easy thing to do. You'd think that Silvestri would be one of those guys that it's a no-brainer. I bet what do I know? And I know that we've I think I've said this, and I'm pretty sure you said the same thing too, Chuck. No joke. If somebody would put together like a New Mutants X-Force era Rob Liefeld artist edition, I would be all over it happily. I want to see that guy's stuff up close. And that is the stuff of his that I like. So I'm not joking. I know I talk a lot of shit, but I would that one I would want to see. And considering he just did that crazy Evangeline crowdfunder through his buddy Marat's page. Like, they were really successful with that. D-Man, you literally flipped off the pride flag parade. You're doing the Lord's work. That's going to get me in trouble. I think I've, like, not actually seen it in person, but yeah, the Marvel covers. Yeah, now that you mentioned that. That'd be, pardon my yawning, that'd be one to seek out. I want the Sam Keith Max Artist Edition. I remember I think the Kayfabe guys looked through that. And Sam Keith's Max stuff was too weird for me. I collected it for several issues, and I liked the art, but it's weird when, like, there's an artist, there'll be artists that I like, but I'm kind of indifferent to, really. But once I get to see it in the black and white, suddenly it becomes magical. It just comes alive, and I'm like, oh my God. And that was Sam Keith's Max stuff. Ugh, excuse me. Later, Mohammed, if you're taking off. Thanks for stopping in. Yeah, I'm kind of the same there, Chuck. I like the Wolverine stuff because, yeah, the Max stuff is too weird. I didn't get it. I didn't understand what I was supposed to be. And maybe you weren't. Maybe I was trying to overthink it. But artistically, separating the story and just looking at those black and white pages in that artist edition that they put together, I was like, holy shit, does this guy know how to draw? Which, I mean, I knew. But it's just otherworldly stuff. The texturing, the use of white, cross-hatching. I've got those Marvel Comics Presents issues. I've had them out for a couple of months. Like, all right, I'm gonna review those things, but there's so many of them. It's like, do I do one a video, or do I do two per video? And then there's some backups. There was a very, very early Liefeld story with the Beast, and that Jay Lee took over. So there's very early Jay Lee work. So I'm like, well, now I got to show those too. what is Sam Keith even doing these days? I mean, he's still alive, right? And like, I don't think he's doing any comic work. So I always wonder what happens to these artists. I mean, did he end up wealthy enough from his work to be able to stop working? Because I would think as an artist, like I can understand an artist getting older and being done with the grind of drawing comics, but they'd still want to make art, I would think. Yeah, he was an inker at DC on Sandman. I've heard that. Didn't he ink some Matt Wagner on the early Mage stuff, like the earliest books? The Mage series is another one that it's kind of a fun one to get into. It's very weird, but very fun. Yeah. Because Wagner eventually ended up just inking himself, I think, not too long after he got started. He probably looked at the stuff and was like, all right, they're doing their best they can do, but I think this will look better if I do it myself. Which ultimately I think is correct for him. You know what's crazy is that Netflix picked up Matt Wagner's Grendel series and, to make a TV series out of it. And they filmed the entire thing, like 8 episodes, and then new management took over and said, nah, we don't want to release this. So they put it in the vault, never to be seen. Yeah, Chuck, I think a lot of artists. I guess I don't know if I agree with every artist. I mean, that's not what you said. You did say most artists, so I know that's but I'm trying to think. Yeah, Matt Wagner did an interview on the Kayfabe channel not too long ago, before everything went to hell. And I remember they talked about that Netflix picked up Grendel as a series. They cast it, filmed it, it's done, it's ready to go. But then new management took over and decided they did not want to release Grendel, and so they put it away and said never gonna see the light of day. So it's done. So was it any good? I mean, Matt Wagner seems to think so, but who knows? Chuck won't mention names. Mention names, Chuck. I feel like, I think I like, for example, let's just stick with the obvious. I think Jim Lee looks good when he inks himself, but I think he looks best when Scott Williams inks him. It's just kind of like a unified style I'm just so used to. So I guess it just depends. I think, this is me personally, I don't like when Portasio inks himself. It's scratchier and more random than I like. My favorite stuff from Portasio, for example, is inked by other people and not him doing himself. I think no one can ink Frank Miller, at least back when Frank Miller was good, except himself. Travis Charest. I mean, Richard Friend made his stuff just sing, just holy crap, but I think Charest's work is best when he does it. Yeah, it's grittier and less polished. You're right, it is, and it certainly looks good. I don't mean it that it looks bad, but I just like the sharper, cleaner lines on his stuff. I don't know why. It's just, maybe it's just what I'm used to, but I see him posting stuff and it always looks good, but I'm just like, it's not the same. Maybe I'm just stuck in the past. Trap. Yeah. Yeah, that. Yeah. If you can ever get Sheree to sit down and do a thing. That is truth. I definitely don't like it when some of these pencilers decide that they don't need an inker. I thought Michael Turner's stuff looked amazing on Witchblade when D-Tron was doing it. But then when he jumped over to Fathom and Joe Weems took over his inks, and good Lord, did that just look great to my eye. And then he just moved on to just doing pencils. You know, that all that DC stuff. He did that Supergirl series, and he did a Superman Batman. Or maybe that was all one and the same. I mean, and I think to like the casual viewer, they couldn't tell a difference. But I could. And of course, I think Joe Mad's stuff without inks it's still good, but it's not as good as it should be. Oh, Chuck, would you even dare to answer that? Who's the worst inker besides me? I don't know. I think anybody who works in the industry is an inker. It might be just a matter of who they're working on top of. Like somebody could be great on one person and terrible on another. Oh, really? Vince Colletta. That's an old name. I always thought that was, I recognize that name in terms of being a name associated with old comics, but I thought it was, I mean, maybe I have it wrong that he was someone that was like one of those old timers that people revered. I don't know anything about him. Did he butcher some Kirby pencils? Was he the guy who like changed shit on his own when he shouldn't have? Old Kirby inker on Thor in particular. Interesting. Oh, shit. You know what, Chuck? I think you mentioned that. Now that you say that, that sounds familiar. What kind of inker would be that kind of ballsy to just make that kind of call on his own? That's unbelievable. And it does sound familiar. Now that you say that, I think you did tell me that once before, because that is something I'm familiar with, and I think I would have only heard it from you. Wow. Yeah, that's a terrible reputation to have, and I'd be pissed as hell. Yeah, just production stuff. That makes sense. Like, this is not a work of art. This is just children's trash entertainment, so get it done. Have Thor standing there looking awesome. We don't care about the secondary characters in the background. Oh, 10 whole bucks. I guess if you're getting paid absolute garbage wages, you're like, you know what? I'm gonna be done with this. That sucks. It sucks that, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, Chuck, but I mean, the comics back in the 60s and 70s, right? I mean, they were selling, it was just kids' entertainment, right? But wasn't this stuff selling reasonably well? I mean, like, was Marvel and DC making as a company probably pretty good money, and they just wouldn't pay the artists because they weren't valuable to them? Is that? I mean, I get the feeling like there was a time when comic books back in the day circulation was huge, like pre-90s. I'm like 60s, 70s, 80s, or whatever, and were the companies raking in decent cash, but then they just didn't care to take care of the artists? Your understanding is back in World War II when they were selling subscriptions to soldiers, the comics were often selling close to 1 million copies per month per title. And so that's kind of what I thought that I understood too, or something to that effect. So I'm like, whatever they cost at the time, that's still a lot of money, right? Yeah, the seduction of the innocent, right? Comics are corrupting the youth. So everyone just bought into it. Yeah, it's really aggravating to think of the artists being treated like such shit. It's like, was it so hard to understand that the art was selling the books? I mean, they probably thought it's the characters selling the books. These artists are replaceable. We could put anybody on this book. Artists back then wanted to be illustrators like Norman Rockwell. You know what's dumb? I keep having these like little thought exercise fantasies. There's like I'll just throw my name into the hat just as a for instance, just because I'll just throw myself under the bus. But like when you look at the way that comics looked back in the 40s and 50s, and what if you sent somebody like, all right, I'm not even going to put my name in there. That'd be stupid. Fuck me. But what if like there was a time machine? You had a DeLorean, and you put like Jim Lee in his Uncanny X-Men era in a DeLorean and sent him back and had him look at the editors of Marvel Comics in the 60s. And the way that he would draw these bigger, more dynamic images that's just different. I wonder, like, would they look at him and go, what the hell is this garbage you're trying to give us? Or do you think that they would look at it and go, holy crap, this is amazing. Where did you come from? You're hired on the spot. I mean, like, art styles change kind of slowly over the years and we kind of get used to it. But what if you took like super popular style from one era and drop it into another era where it just didn't exist? I've always wondered what, the people in charge or what the fans would think. What if just suddenly there was everyone knows what the first issue of Superman looked like, right? That art, how quaint and simple it is by modern standards. And what if suddenly there was an issue of Superman drawn by Jim Lee that they just threw out there on the shelves? I wonder how that would have, how people would have responded to that in that era, if that was even a possible thing. Chuck, you say they know it's not the characters that sell those books, but the characters are the only element of the whole thing. They have control over it. Yeah. They would have done like they did with Neil Adams and offered him any fucking book he wanted. Jim Lee would have printed like complete shit in 1938. Yeah, I mean that's yeah. I know the printing techniques are vastly different. It's just more of just like a random thought. I'm like, I just wonder what something like that. The guy who was the defining artist of the 90s. What would the creatives and the fans thought of if he popped back up into 1945 or something like that and drew that way? I always wondered, what would that look like and how would people respond? But yeah, the methods of reproduction, yeah, it's not the same. Did they take pictures of the books? Isn't that how they produced that stuff? By like pictures? Yeah, and that's kind of what I was wondering, Chuck. Yeah, yeah, and that makes sense. Like it wouldn't work because it's all right place, right time. And you're right. I mean, not to keep bringing up the same goddamn thing all the time, but I mean, Liefeld's the perfect example of right place, right time, right style, right characters, right moment. But I think you bring him on in any other time and it doesn't work. It's just like I said, just an interesting thought exercise. Like, I wonder how that would go down. Would people be laughed out of the studios? Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's a good point, Chuck. I have that same kind of thought exercise with, like, I don't know. What if you took some musician from one era, kind of like in Back to the Future, I guess, like when McFly was like playing Johnny Be Good to all those kids from 1955 and they had no idea what the hell that was. I might be done for the moment for today. I gotta go do some shopping so I can go buy some more steaks that I won't leave out for the critters to eat this time, but I gotta buy a little bit of everything. Gotta finish some laundry. Gotta do all this shit to get the week started. Gotta feed the, right? Yeah, I really fed the wildlife. That was so stupid. But it makes for fun stories. Hey, don't leave a pack of steak, even wrapped in plastic, outside on the grill to let it warm up to room temperature. Because guess what? The cats will come get it no matter what. Fucking cats. Or raccoons or whatever they were. I don't know. There you go. That'll be my high-rated video. Just set it as automatic record, time lapse, and let's see who steals this shit. Damn animals. Then all these critters would start like surrounding my place all day. Like, this guy gives us the good stuff. Everyone just hang out. Trust us. There's this one, that one, that one. All right, guys, I got to go do some stuff. Well, thanks for everyone for stopping in as always. Always good conversations with you, Chuck, as always. Yeah, see you later. Someone saying, D-Man, if you're still in there, the lapsed comics fan.